Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR and Sirius XM Channel 141. This is the Insight segment. I'm Harold Fisher. Making money is something many of us are doing, but feeling secure about those dollars, well, that's another story. As inflation lingers, retirement feels uncertain, and families worry about what they'll leave behind, financial anxiety is at an all-time high. If you are feeling funny about your money, tonight's conversation is definitely for you. My guest says it's time to move beyond the get-rich mentality and focus on building generational wealth. Dr. Willie Jolley joins us. The Hall of Fame speaker, Sirius XM host, and best-selling author is out with a new book for the new year. Rich is good, wealthy is better. Happy New Year, Willie.
Happy New Year, Harold, and thank you for having me. And I'm encouraging everybody who wants to be wealthy to tune in, take out a pad, a pen, a piece of paper, an iPad, or whatever you take notes on, and also call your friends and family members and tell them to turn on the radio or tune in any way they can, because this is going to be a life-changing interview and session today.
So this is for the people who did not win the Mega Millions.
Yeah, if you did not win the Mega Millions lottery and you want wealth, I've got the answer, or an answer that is time-tested and proven, not from me, but lessons from billionaires and millionaires who I've interviewed, who have taught me what they know, and I've put it into a book.
So let's talk about this for a moment, because I have certainly a lot of questions where you say rich is good, wealthy is better, but what's the difference?
Okay, well, first, thank you again for having me, and I want to applaud all of the great things you've done, Harold, over the years on radio, as well as your team and everybody at WHUR, where I'm proud to be part of the team, where I am on every weekend. Well, I'm on Saturdays at 4:00 on channel 141 with the Willie Jolley Wealthy Ways show, and it re-airs Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6. So I want to thank you. And now, for 20 years, this is my 20th season on Sirius XM, Harold. And for 20 years, I've been interviewing some of the greatest wealth creators the world has ever seen. Bill Marriott, David Rubenstein, and Bob Johnson, Sheila Johnson, Ted Leonsis, the co-founder of Netflix, Damon John, John Hope Bryant, just one after another. And over those years, I thought I knew, Harold, what wealth was, for many of those years at least. And about 5 years ago, the light bulb went off above my head, and I realized, what I thought was wealth was really being rich. And there's a distinct and profound difference between being rich and wealthy. And I thought maybe I was the outlier. I'm the only one who doesn't know this difference. So I went around the country doing surveys to people where I'd go to speak to these major corporations or rallies or wherever I'm speaking. And I'd say to people, well, what do you think when I use the word rich? What do you think? And what's the number? And they'd all say $1 million. You got $1 million, you're rich. I said, okay, well, what's the key to being rich? They say $1 million, you're rich. Okay, well, if rich is $1 million, then what's wealthy? And they'd look up in the air, they ponder for a moment, and they say, I guess it's 5 million, 10 million, 1 billion. I say, is that the only difference between being rich and wealthy in your mind? Yes. Wow. I realized I was not the only person who did not know the difference between rich and wealthy. And so I started calling the billionaires that I'd interviewed and saying, hey, look, here's my theory. Am I right? They say, you're absolutely right. I said, why didn't you tell me when I interviewed you? They said, because we're too busy creating wealth. You've got the platform. You put the word out. So here's the difference, Harold. The difference is that rich is a result of money you earn from what you do. Wealthy is the result of money you generate by what you own. Let me say it again. Rich is the result of money you earn by what you do, usually during the day. And wealthy is the result of money you generate at night, typically while you sleep, by what you own. I was in Cleveland 2 weeks ago speaking for a number of events. And one of my clients took me to a fancy restaurant. And while we were there, one of the star players from the Cleveland Browns football team was walking through the restaurant with his entourage. He had a big, beautiful fur coat on. And this gentleman who I was with said, hey, come on over. I want you to meet Dr. Jolley. So he and his entourage came over, fur coat and jewelry around the neck and diamonds on his bracelet on his arm. And so we chatted for a moment. And then my guest, my host said, hey, Dr. Jolley teaches people how to be wealthy. And this young man said, I'm already wealthy, but I guess I can learn more about wealth. And so I gave him my card. We chatted a few more minutes and then he left. And I said to my host, I bet you dimes to dollars. I don't know his finances, but I bet you dimes to dollars that young man thinks he's wealthy, but he's really rich. The owner is wealthy. See, that young man ran up and down the field. He caught balls. He threw balls, or whatever he did to be on that field. And because of that, he got a check for doing it and doing it well. The owner never ran up and down a field. He didn't sweat. He didn't get hit. He sat and sipped his favorite beverage and ate some food. But at the end of the game, the young man walked away with millions. He's going to be a millionaire. But the owner has billions, and he made the majority of the money that day. Riches, the result of what you earn from what you do, usually during the day. And wealthy is the money you generate at night while you sleep by what you own. That's it. That's the answer.
You know that many families are earning on paper more than they did, or more than certainly their parents did years ago. Yes. And yet the level of stress and anxiety over money, even anecdotally speaking, has increased exponentially in this day and age. Why do you believe that making money, good money, air quotes, does not automatically bring peace of mind?
Well, because the money is a tool. We got to understand money is a tool. It's a tool to help you get things you want. It's a tool to help you feel more secure. The problem with anybody who has that anxiety is typically because they don't have enough of it. Okay, they just don't have enough of it. And so this book has two focus areas, Harold, two focus areas that are critical. Number one is all the people who want to be wealthy but don't know how to get there. This book teaches them the lessons I learned from these wealth creators so that they can reproduce it in their lives. Number two, though, Harold, is where we're getting the greatest number of sales. People are buying the book. One group yesterday I was at, they bought a lady bought a box. That's 30 books. Others buy 7, 8, 9, 10 copies at a time. Why is it? Because this second group is the people who have worked hard all their lives. They've scrimped, they've saved, they've sacrificed, they've lived conservatively, and they've created a nest egg, yet they are afraid that their children are going to squander that money. Or as one man said, my biggest fear, Dr. Jolley, is my children are not going to treat my money like I treated it, and they're going to go through in months what it took me decades and decades and decades to grow.
Why is that? Well, let me ask you, because I think that is not a solitary fear.
Mm-hmm.
I think that a lot of people have heard that.
Yep.
From their peer groups, from folks in their church. Does that mean that he did a poor job of raising his children?
No.
There is something that has happened that he and a lot of hard-working older Americans are seeing that they didn't do when they were the same age as their adult children when it comes to money.
Well, no, it's not he did a poor job. Harold, I know, because we're friends, that you have a daughter.
Mm-hmm. And she's cheap. She's very frugal.
Oh, good. But there's such a thing called the stranger from afar phenomenon. And that is that sometimes children cannot hear from their parents what their parents want them to know. So I have found over the years that parents will say, I spoke to my children about this, but they wouldn't accept it from me. But some stranger from afar came and told them almost the exact same thing I said. And all of a sudden they get, oh, that's illumination. Look, my daughter, I have two children. My daughter, well, when she was a young, well, not quite a teen, a little older than a teen, had a bad attitude, just a bad attitude. And I'm an attitude teacher. I teach people how to have a great attitude, how to be more successful. But she couldn't hear it from me. But one of my friends, Keith Harold, the late great speaker who wrote the book, Attitude is Everything, he and I were talking one day on the phone, and I was sharing with him my anxiety, my issue with this child who can't hear from me how to change her attitude to be successful. He said, give me your number. He called her, spoke to her for 20 minutes, shift. And so that's why we say it's not the parents' fault. The parents, that's a normal phenomenon called the stranger from afar phenomenon that almost all parents have to deal with. Also, I'm glad you have a child who is frugal, but I have found that most parents and who I've talked to over the years have if they have more than one child, have one child who's not good with money. And they talk to them, and that child is not good with money. And so this book is the antidote. It's the secret. It's the answer to that problem. That's why one guy said to me, look, I'm buying 10 copies of this book because I got me and my wife want a copy, and then I've got children and grandchildren. I'm making it mandatory reading that before you get in my will, you're going to have to read this book. If you don't read this book, you're not getting in the will because you are not going to go through my money.
Let's I want to talk about what you were saying in reference to this friend or associate of yours, where he said he was afraid that the money that he would leave behind would be wasted by his children. Yep. Why did he believe that was the case?
Well, of course, he saw that at least one or two of his children were not good with money. He's seen it over. Here's the answer, Carol. He raised his children. He put them through college. They got jobs and they're working hard. They got a nice income. They're making what you just said, good money. But every month, they calling him, Dad, I'm a little short on my rent. Dad, I'm a little short on my car note. He said, you working, I'm working. Why is it that you're short on your money every month? And I got to help you out with your bills. He said, that's the reason why. He said, they're not good with money. And he's tried to tell him, he's tried to teach him, he's tried to encourage him, but they still come up short. This is the secret. The secret is, you've got to develop discipline. The difference between those who have money and those who haven't is discipline and wealth. Now, in the book, I talk about the 5 types of wealth. Of course, there's financial wealth, which takes discipline. But then there's health wealth. You know, if you have good health, you're not able to enjoy your wealth. It is said that Steve Jobs on his deathbed said, I'd give it all away.
Yes, I've heard. Yes, that is a true statement.
Yes,
that he would give all of his billions away if he had good health. Yeah,
that's right. So third wealth is relationship wealth. As my friend Les Brown says, it's not just where you're going, who's going with you. The fourth one is reputational wealth. We call that now a brand, and people are very protective of their brand, but their personal brands. What do people say about you? What kind of opportunities come your way because of your reputation? And finally, it's intellectual capital wealth. What do you know, and what are people willing to pay you and give you because of that? Those 5 types of wealth: financial, health, relationship, reputational, and intellectual capital. Those are the ones I found to be profoundly part of this conversation about wealth. The book goes into that, as well as the 8 streams of income, that everybody should have at least 2 streams of income. And we've seen it so clearly here with Doge cuts and layoffs, and that you need to have 2 streams of income in case one gets tight. Then you need to have a second to keep you going. And that's one of the things this book teaches how you do.
Willie, sit tight for just a moment. We are going to, as always, take a quick break. But don't forget, You can hear this and every edition of the Daily Drum Inside segment via podcast on WHUR.com. The original Quiet Storm with Raheem Devon is coming up next on WHUR-FM. This conversation continues on Sirius XM channel 141 in just a few seconds. Welcome back to the Daily Drum on Sirius XM channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. We continue our conversation about moving beyond a get-rich mentality and focusing on building generational wealth. My guest is Dr. Willie Jolley. His new book is titled Rich is Good, Wealthy is Better. You know, Willie, one of the things that you and I are old enough certainly to remember that for our children, when we were our children's age, for example, 20s and in some cases, 30s, that television was free.
Yep.
There were no cell phones, which meant that you didn't have to pay for a phone that could cost anywhere from $500 to $1,100 in addition to at least $100 a month.
Yep.
And I know there's a saying that, $1 million just doesn't go as far as it used to go.
Absolutely.
And it's funny, but for those who are financially minded, 40 years ago, you could retire on $1 million.
Yes.
These days, if you have $1 million, you may realize that still is not enough to live comfortably. And I'm not talking about luxuriously.
Yes.
But I'm talking about so that you can pay for cable, buy a new phone every 2 or 3 years, maintain your car, pay your mortgage, or if the house is paid off, pay your property taxes, all of those things. So how does your book address the realities of inflation and how money is viewed in 2026?
Yeah, the book is entitled "Rich is Good, Wealthy is Better" for everybody who wants to know what we're talking about. Rich is Good, Wealthy is Better, and it's available at richisgoodwealthyisbetter.com. richisgoodwealthyisbetter.com. Or if you to get an autographed copy of the collector's hardcover. If you just want to get a copy, you can always go to Amazon. But I encourage you to go to richisgoodwealthyisbetter.com, because if you get 2 or more copies, I will pay for shipping. Let me answer your question, Harold. Is that in this time of inflation and economic downturn, the principles that are shared in this book, first of all, it teaches you the different uses of money. Because many people say, well, what is money to you? Well, money is something to get something with. Okay, you buy something with. But money has many other tools and uses. It's a storage of value. It's a valuation process. In other words, you know that it takes X amount of money to get a Volkswagen, but a different amount of money to get a Rolls Royce. So that valuation shows what kind of value you have in the product. Then we talk about how currency started with seashells and with barter, and then it moved up, and now it's going to crypto. And so we got all kinds of wealth. The different types of wealth. How do you define wealth? Then the fact that mindset impacts assets. And that's what we want people to understand. It's going to take discipline. And the fact, one more important, everybody who's listening should know that everybody is not going to become not going to become rich. Everybody's not going to become rich. The Bible says that the poor will be with you always. But anybody, I got to emphasize that, anybody who uses these principles can turn that into wealth. I tell the story in the book of different people who had low income but became wealthy, like Mary Ellen Pleasant, who was a domestic worker, cleaning people's homes and cleaning their clothes. She never made more than $6,000 per year, but when she died, she had a net worth of $2.7 million. Or how about the secretary who worked in a law office in the 60s and 70s before the internet? The lawyers would come to her and say, here's my stock I want to buy today. And so call it into my broker. She did that for a couple of weeks or a couple of months. And she said, oh, you know what? I'm going to ask them why they buy this or that stock. She asked them over lunch, and she started taking a part of her little $45,000 a year in income, living below her means, and investing as the lawyers invested on what they invested. When she retired from that law firm, she had $8 million in her portfolio. And so I'm saying to you, Harold, it's not about the amount of money you make, it's what you do with that money. And you must learn to live below your means. So wealth has three stools, three pegs, three legs to wealth creation. Number one, from what I've learned from these interviews, is that you must have income. Of course, the more income, the better. Number two is investment. You must live below your means and invest the margin or the difference between what you make and what you can live on. And you hopefully will have a margin of at least 30% that you can start to invest consistently. And then third, you must have insurance. Oh, and look, I'm not pressing on you on what kind of insurance company or which company, even though I'm talking to many of them about sponsor deals. But here's what I say. You got to have life insurance. If you don't have life insurance, you don't really love your family. You got to have life insurance. So you leave people not with a bill, but with a will. You know, many people die and they got to do a GoFundMe to bury them. No, you should have life insurance. You should have auto insurance. You should have health insurance. You have disability, because if you get sick, your money in this nest egg that you've built should not be siphoned away because you're sick. Then you got to have those kind of insurances. And recently I have two friends whose homes burned down. One guy went to high school, and another friend of mine who was a mentor. Homes burned down from electrical fires, but thank God they had good fire insurance, and that meant replacement insurance. So these things are going to create a long-term wealth program. And you said one more thing, Harold, I want to delve in that I talk about in the book: generational wealth. Because we in our community, we talk about, you know, I'm working, I got a barber shop, I got a beauty shop, I got a lawn care service, I got a cleaning service, and I'm doing good. I'm making money. I'm growing. I'm building generational wealth. Well, here's the problem. Most generational wealth we talk of is only gets to the second generation. Big Mama has worked hard, struggled, saved, sacrificed to buy a home. She had a life insurance policy. When she died, the life insurance policy pays off and the home is available. What they do is they fight over the money and they dissipate it. It's gone. Whoof, in a heartbeat. And then they fight over the house. And one of them says, I want my part. And then they got to sell the house, because that one person said, I want my part, and the house is gone, the asset is gone, and they are starting back at ground zero. That's not generational wealth. Let me tell you what generational wealth is. I interviewed on my show the president of the Dale Carnegie Institute, and I asked him, what's your business model? He said, we have a franchise model. I said, how many franchises? He told me the number. I did the calculation. That many franchises by that much money. Wow, y'all make a lot of money every year. Where can I buy some stock? He said, you can't. I said, wow, what company owns it? He said, no company owns it. The family owns it. What? I said, well, how long have they owned it? This is when he blew my mind. 125 years. Wow. Dale Carnegie's family gets millions of dollars in their family every year. And what they've done is they taught their children how to take care of the golden goose. See, we find that many people don't tell their children how to take care of the golden goose. So they kill the goose. They taught their children, here's how you maintain the wealth. And that's what this book does. It teaches you how to teach your children, or teaches your children how to maintain what you've worked so hard for. Rich is good. Wealthy is better. Come on, somebody.
So I have also, heard that in some families, yes, this catchphrase, generational wealth, has been talked about and talked about and talked about. So, but let me ask you a basic, question.
Yep.
Why?
Yeah. Why? Because
Why bother? Because I've also heard folks that say, "Look, I'm going to spend all of my money now, and my children are on their own."
you know, uh, I'm give you. I have a theological degree. And
Mhm.
my theological degree says that the Bible teaches that a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's great grandchildren. Part of the reason we don't often know who our great grandfather or great grandmama was because they didn't leave us anything to remember them by. I was on an interview like this when the host asked me a simple question. He said, "Willie Jolley, what's your biggest goal?" And I quickly told him my biggest goal is that 100 years from now, some child will walk in a room and see a picture of me and my wife and say, "Thank you, great granddaddy. Thank you, great grandmama, for what you did back 20, 100, 150 years ago to make it possible for us to go to college, to make it possible for us to have a home and a business." And I look at the Rockefellers or the Carnegies and the Kennedys. They've got generational wealth and they've built a nest egg that their children's children can benefit from the efforts. And so that is why, yeah, you should live your life and do well with what you have worked hard for and enjoy the fruits of your labor. But I found that many people, once they get a certain level and a certain age and they get children or grandchildren, everything changes. We got our little grandson here today. He's 15 months old. My goal is that his great grandchildren will benefit from what Dee and I are doing here today in our lives, and that we're teaching our children how to maintain it. They'll teach him, he'll teach his children how to maintain the goose so that that goose will be able to impact the generation. And we still live a good life. We're still able to travel and have a home and have cars and have good times, but we also are also planning for generations yet unborn. It's been said that a great man will plant a tree that takes 80 years to grow when he's in his 80s. He knows he'll never sit under that tree, but he's doing it for the generations yet unborn. So that's my answer to that, Harold. I want to encourage people to be thinking legacy. I'm an artist in residence at High Point University, where they pay me to come twice a year and speak to the students. Other artists in residence at High Point are John Wozniak, the co-founder of Apple, John Maxwell, the great guru. We have so many great ones who are co-founder of Netflix. And so I'm honored to be in that group. Now, people at High Point, they pay millions of dollars to get their names on buildings. The John Smith School of Architecture, the Joseph Daniels School of Dentistry. Why do they spend all that money when they could be spending that money? Because
they have big egos.
Well, but they want, that's true, and they want legacy. They want to have their legacy. So right there at Howard, we've got the Kathy Hughes School of Communication because she wanted a legacy. We look at what God has blessed you with and what you can do good with it. By the way, at Deuteronomy, in the book of Deuteronomy, it says, God gives you the power to create wealth, so you can establish his kingdom on this earth. God gives you the power, the opportunities, the strength, the thinking to create wealth so you can do good with it and that you can make a difference and that you can be a philanthropist. So that's what I want to do. I want to be philanthropic. I want to make a difference, and I want to bless my family, even the ones I have not yet met or I will never meet, and so that they'll know that I was this way.
So what do you believe is the biggest impediment to building wealth?
Mindset. Okay. Oh, that was quick. Mindsets. Look, in the book, I talk about the 5 money mindsets. And Harold, you're going to see one of these mindsets every day. The first or lowest level mindset is the 1-day mindset. That's the person you see every single day at the same spot with a cardboard box saying, give me enough food to eat today. And every day he repeats that cycle because he has a one-day mindset. Then you get the 30-day mindset. People who live month to month, they have fixed income or Social Security or on welfare, and they got usually more month than they got money. And every month, at the end of the month, they can't wait till the first of the month to get their check. And that's good. That's okay. That's fine. Because some of it is due to health challenges or whatever. But then you got the 1 year mindset. The 1 year mindset is sometimes what we call the middle class mindset, where people are living year to year. Did I get more money this year than last year? Did I get a cost of living raise? And they think year to year. But then you get the decade mindset, the 10-year mindset. And we typically see that with athletics or entertainers, where a baseball player would get a 10-year contract to play baseball. He gets $100 million to play for 10 years, and he balling for 10 years. He got 5 Bentleys, 2 Rolls Royces, a mansion in Florida, a mansion in up here, and he got a helicopter to take him from one to the other. He balling, got table service when he goes to the club. But if he does not get that contract renewed, or he gets hurt, and he does not modify his lifestyle, he's going to be broke in 5 years. And that's why studies show, and statistics show, that professional athletes, 70% of them are broke 5 years after retirement. But then you get the wealth mindset. The wealth mindset is the generation to generation to generation mindset, that they're thinking 100 years out. And that's what I want people to do. Now, in the book, I tell those 5 mindsets, and I say, here's my goal for this book. We got the audio version as well as the written version. And I say, my goal for this book is that each level will go up 1 level. See, the one-day guide, to try and get him to the generational, the mindset of generation, too big a gap, too big a chasm. But if I can get that guy or that woman to get to the 30-day, and if I can get to 30-day to get to the 1 year, and I get the 1 year folks to get to the 10-year mindset, and I get them 10-year mindset folks to get to the generational mindset, oh, we're going to see.
Yeah, but Willie, I get it. Yes. And I know you.
Yes.
But you give me some specifics, man. Because you got me. Because if that person is, let's just talk about the middle class folks who work. They get a paycheck every 2 weeks. Okay.
Yep.
How do they make the transition?
Yep.
I mean, okay, so you change the mindset, but so what is the mind over the man? Come on,
here's the steps.
How is it?
Here's the steps, and this is the steps that I share. Now, there are 2 money formulas.
Okay.
One formula is the 50-30-20 formula, which is you live on 50% of what you generate, or your check. The 30% is 20% is for your savings and investing, and 30% is for miscellaneous. Okay, so you live on 50%, you save and invest 20%, and you have 30% miscellaneous, or some of that is fund money. Okay, I have a personal formula that I have employed for years that was taught to me by a friend who was a multimillionaire. It's called the 30-50-20. The 30 is made up of 3 parts. 10% you tithe, you give away. You find a church or a synagogue or a mosque, and you bless them with it because you're planting a seed. And as I said, God gives you the power to create wealth. So you plant a seed in a good ground. And then the next 10% you save. You should save 10% of every dollar, because when you have a flat tire, it should not be a crisis. Or a broken water main, or a refrigerator goes out, or a washing machine, it should not be a crisis. And then you invest the last 10%. And in this time of different fractional investing, you can buy a small portion of what you're using. If you drive a certain type of car, you should be buying that stock for that car. If you use a certain kind of gas, you should be buying the stock from that car or that gas. If you go to Amazon or Google or whatever every day, you should buy a little piece of that every time and it's called dollar cost averaging over time. So you tithe a dime, you save a dime, and then you invest a dime. And you live on 50%, and then you got 20% to have fun with.
Here's the other thing, and I had this conversation just a couple of weeks ago with Michelle Singletary. You know Michelle with
She endorsed the book. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. She
with the
endorsed my
Washington
book.
Post.
Yep.
And because her whole thing is dealing with debt.
Yes.
What do you recommend? It's one thing to say, again, to change your mindset and say, I'm going to deal with this debt.
Yes.
But how do you deal with the debt if you are living a certain way? And I don't even want to say you're living, a certain lifestyle, but you already have a mortgage and in a decent community, kids in school, blah, blah, blah. Does that mean that you need to downsize to change?
I'm gonna tell you what I'm already tell you what Michelle said to you in your conversation. I wasn't in the room.
Right.
I know Michelle very good. We go to the same church, First Baptist Church of Glen Arden. She's a dear friend of mine, and as I said, she endorsed this book, Rich is Good, Wealthy is Better. Michelle told you, I know, and she said you're gonna have to do some hard stuff to get out of debt. That's right. I know already what she said.
I want to know what you say, though.
I say that one of the things I write in the book from my mentor, who's 96 years old, who has taught me, he says, never pay interest. Never pay interest. He said, people pay interest on stuff they shouldn't pay interest for. They put on their credit card streaming services. They put their party and fun stuff on their credit card, and then they have this credit card. Never pay interest. Get that credit card debt down. If that means you got a tax return and you got to decide whether to go on vacation or pay off your credit card, pay the credit card off. Okay. Only thing I have any debt on in my life is my mortgage. And that's because my financial planner said your interest rate is so low that you would make more in the market than you would take buying that off. But we still planning to pay it off this year, nevertheless, because of the peace of mind. But we say never pay interest, pay off that credit card, attack it like it's an enemy, like it's taking money out of your children's mouth. Attack it like I've got to get mad at that credit card and pay off that interest. And once you do, never let it get up again. Make your payment automatic so that every month you don't have to think about it, and you keep an account of how much you put on that credit card and have enough money in the bank to pay it off in full every month. So
why do you suppose that it is so difficult for people to change, their mindset, particularly Black folks? And this is
so we are consumers. Let's go right what it is. We're the biggest consumers in the world. We are the biggest consumer. We like to buy. We buy. As George Fraser wrote in the book, my friend, he talks about the 8 streams of income, but he says far too many people have $5,000 handbags and $5 in cash in their pocketbook. He said, I'd rather you have a $5 pocketbook and $5,000 in a fund that you have the card to in your pocketbook. We're consumers. We got to get red bottom shoes. We got to look. And part of that is because we've been under the gun. We've been under somebody's thumb for so long. We're just a couple generations away from Jim Crow. And so we didn't have the capacity to go to places and live the big life. So now we're doing it. But I'm saying to you folks, you got to be disciplined. You got to be disciplined. You got to say no. I don't have all those streaming services in my for my television. I don't watch television that much, but I've got family members who got every streaming service there is. They got every single one of them, and they don't watch. They watch a lot more movies than I do. And then they get a car that make them feel good, but they got a 72-month car note. And look, I was one of those people, Harold. I was one of those people when my mom, when we first got married. We've been married 40 years, and my son was born. We bought this car. We didn't even ask the man. He said, what's your financial situation? We told him, he said, I can work it out. I don't remember what the interest rate on that car note was. It was high. I already know. And we paid for 72 months on that car.
Well, that's a long time. You mentioned something earlier about being in Ohio and you saw a football player
Yeah.
from the Cleveland Browns. And one of the things, to your point, that I've been thinking about for years, decades even, that often when we see Black professional athletes, football, baseball, it doesn't matter. Boxing is a prime example. But let's just take, football or baseball, or basketball, there are so many of them.
Right.
Is that a lot of the Black professional athletes are flamboyant and they are flaunting their money. And yet and this goes back to what you were saying, but when you look at some of the white professional athletes, a lot of these guys, when they come to the stadium or to the arena, they drive pickup trucks.
Mm-hmm.
They're nice pickup trucks.
Yeah, they're nice pickup trucks, yes.
But they're driving pickup trucks that even in all of their millions, and they may have other cars, but I'm talking about what we see. That pickup truck may be in 2026 money. That may be an $80,000 or $90,000 pickup truck. When a lot of the Black players are driving cars that are $150,000, $250,000. And you spoke about kind of our history. So how do we change that mindset? How do we deal with that discipline?
Yes.
In order to make what you're talking about work down the road? How can we see beyond today and that steakhouse, for example, that you were in?
Yeah. Input determines output. What you get in. If you've seen nothing but flamboyant lifestyles from the professional athlete, you're going to replicate that. That is why I want that everybody, I want this book to be in your house. I want you to have a copy or copies of this book, because Rich is Good, Wealthy is Better will try to change your inputs, which will change outputs. It's about financial literacy. I was honored last year to get the Titan of Speaking Award at the Hope Global Forum, myself and Les Brown. And John Hope Bryant puts this on every year in December. And so I stayed for the whole conference, and how they really are pursuing teaching people financial literacy with Operation Hope. He wants to teach people how to manage their money better. So
real quick, because I'm running out of time.
Yes.
And this is really important.
Sure.
What are the key points of financial literacy that you believe that people are not getting?
Yeah, financial literacy that they are not getting. Number one is that money is a tool. It's not to be your God. It's not to be your all in all. And you must realize it's a tool. And second is that money has different uses. It's one money is to buy stuff, but another is to grow more money. Wealthy people, so it's old saying says middle class people work for their money and wealthy people make their money work for them. So you can learn that. You can learn how. One of the things I'll give a shout out here to a guy named J.R. Fenwick, who I've had on my XM show, who has a new program called Shop for Stocks Online. And he's teaching people how to do stocks. He's teaching. It's an education program. So Shop for Stocks Online. Check it out. .com, by the way. And it's about teaching each other how money works and what we should do with it. I want to teach more people. That's why I wrote the book. I want to help more people grow their wealth. I didn't know it. Look, Harold, my mama and my grandmama and my grand folks and my dad told me, go to school, get a good education, get a job, and save your money. That's what they told me. I never heard the word invest, ever. Okay, never. And so I want to teach people what to do with your money so you can grow it and we can grow your wealth. Rich is Good, wealthyisbetter.com. Rich is good, wealthyisbetter.com. Get multiple copies for everybody in your family. And if you want, we're going to be having some seminars. You got to listen to me and follow me. If you'll go to winwithwillie.com, winwithwillie.com, and just sign up for my daily 1-minute messages that I send out globally by email. If you do that, you'll be hearing when we're going to have events that you can tune into, join in on, and grow your wealth. This is going to be life-changing and legacy-changing.
Willie, thank you so much. I'm out of time. Congratulations on the book. Happy New Year to you.
Thank you, Harold.
Appreciate it. That is the Daily Drum for this Monday, January 5th, 2026. I'm Harold Fisher. Good night.